better, and baseball fans glad of it.
Line drive, right field. We may have a play at the plate. Big hop. Here comes Downing. Here's the throw. It is. He knocked him off the plate. What a tag by Carter. A tremendous play by Carter. Oh, baby, what a play.
And what a throw by Dave Parker, who continues to show why some people consider him the greatest player in the game. One big hop. Watch it. Great play by Carter, as you said, Joe. A strong throw. Downing tries to slide inside, away from the ball. Carter blocks him off.
He knocked him right off the plate, never did let him in. How Carter was able to catch that ball. Now he cuts loose with the ball, but now watch Carter knock the runner off the plate. Right there, he pushes him off, almost gets in there. Look at his hand. Tremendous work by our crew. And Carter comes up with the ball, and he had a good ball to handle, Tony.
Oh, I'll tell you, all the way on the fly. No hitting a cutoff man in this situation. No slowing the ball down on hitting on the artificial surf or anything.
All right, folks, welcome to the Sports Talk with Chris Heidel here on a beautiful Monday night. It's Home Run Derby night. It's All-Star Week in Seattle, and that was Dave Parker at the Cobra gunning out Brian Downing at home plate. And a nice catch by Gary Carter, who I idolized when I was a kid growing up. And he and Mike Trout, Adam, are the only two players have won multiple MVPs of the All-Star.
And that was Joe Garagiola and Tony Kubek on the call for NBC Sports.
Exactly.
And Joe Garagiola was a very good broadcaster as well. So we have a packed show tonight, don't we, Chris?
Yes, we have a great show tonight. First, coming up at 7:35 in like 3 minutes, the play-by-play broadcaster John Vitus will be joining us. He's from University of Maryland, but he's down in Fort Myers, Florida, doing the trim. It used to be the Fort Myers Twins. Now it's called the Mighty Muscles of Fort Myers. I guess they decided to change the names. And then at 7:45, we'll get Bob Carpenter, the voice of the Washington Nationals. If you watch it on MASN, he's the lead guy on the MASN broadcast for the Nationals. So we'll talk to him by phone to get him to what he thinks about the first half. The Nationals are stinking up the joint. They're down, 25 games out of first place, pretty much?
Yes, Chris. Yes, it looks like we Atlanta Braves are looking forward to bringing another World Series championship.
You never knew, bud.
I know, but still, it's like first team to 60 wins, Chris.
First team. Sounds like one of those first team like an old horse game. First team to spell horse. Wins.
Yes.
Reason we played that song, "The Hard Day's Night." It was on this date in 1964. The Beatles released that album. That was their third album, their whole career, and it was pretty. It made a lot of money for those.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did, Chris.
So Adam, you want to welcome in the first guest?
Oh, sure will. It's called. It's been really hot down there in Florida lately. But our first guest is no stranger to hot weather, since he is the voice of the single A affiliate of the Minnesota Twins, and he is a broadcaster for Florida Gulf Coast University on ESPN Plus. So he's probably waiting for some cooler weather down there in Florida. So let's welcome our first guest. He is the voice of the Fort Myers Mighty Muscles, John Vitas. And John, thanks so much for joining us tonight. And I'm used to people from Florida because I work for a Florida-based company, and I've talked to a lot of people who are here from who are here in the Smoky Mountains in North Carolina for the summer, who are up from Florida. So talk to us about how hot it's been down there in the first half of the season for the Mighty Muscles of Fort Myers.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah,
you sound
good.
You sound good.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we're definitely in our summer season here. The temperatures are in the 90s during the day. It gets the heat index gets around 110 most days. But then at some point in the afternoon or early evening, there's usually thunderstorms.
Yep.
So as hot as we are during the day, it actually sometimes will drop into the 70s for game time, which happened a few times this past week when we were on the road in Jupiter.
I've been to Jupiter.
Hot. It's obscenely
Yeah,
hot till
yeah.
about
When I went in at the end of May, it was like 85 degrees. So I'm used to that Florida weather, John.
Yes, and then it gets overcast and it becomes a sauna, but it's not as hot. It's around 80. But yeah, we're used to it. I've been in the Florida State League for 6 years, so I've seen plenty of tarp pulls. I've been a part of some, and you're always watching the clouds because you can't really trust the radars or the apps because they change momentarily.
Exactly. Well, John, you were a graduate of University of Maryland, so just talk about your journey from College Park all the way down to the Florida State League. How did that all start come about?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate with my journey. When I was the reason I went to Maryland was for the broadcasting school. I didn't really know what else I wanted to study, and so I was kind of as a senior researching which colleges had the best programs, and Maryland was definitely the best program that I got accepted to. So somewhat of a no-brainer to go there, and the faculty was great. I had so many opportunities to call Maryland sports. I think I did like a dozen of the Terps games, dozen different sports of Terps games while I was there. Got really tied in well with the baseball team, and got to go on the road with them my last 2 years for most of the road trips, which was a great experience. And then I ended up at MLB Network working behind the scenes in stats and graphics for almost a year. And then I got hired by one of my old Terps buddies, Scott Kornberg, to work for the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. So I was in the Cubs organization for one season, just a seasonal position with him. And then got a full-time job with the Charlotte Stone Crabs, which was the high A affiliate of the Tampa Bay Rays. And so I did that for 3.5 years until the pandemic hit. And then was out of baseball during the pandemic and got a call from the Twins at the very beginning of 2021 to join us to stay in the FSL and work full time for them. So now I do a lot more than I did with my previous two teams. I'm hired all the press box employees, obviously in charge of the broadcast home and road. I do the PA announcing and DJing during spring training for the Twins games, and sales, corporate sales as well. So there's a lot of different hats depending on the month of the year. My job changes quite a bit. So this is the fun part. This is the 5 months where I'm doing, radio almost every night. So this is definitely the fun part of the year.
That's cool. Let's welcome in our other broadcast partner, Matt Trecanelli. Matt, welcome to the show, buddy. You have a question for John? If he's working. Is he frozen?
Yeah, he's frozen.
Yeah, he's frozen. Anyway, hopefully he will get himself figured out. So you were in the down there in the beautiful Florida State League. You had a chance to work with Tampa Bay, and you saw some guy named Franco with Tampa. What was it like watching that guy play? In single A, pretty much down there in the Florida State League.
Oh, it was special. It was special. Obviously, he came to us with a lot of hype. He was already, top 10 prospect in baseball when he got to us at 18. But yeah, just special skills. I learned what an 80 grade hit tool looks like. I've never seen that from anybody else, and it was legit. And to see what he did at his age against such good competition was just crazy. So yeah, it was awesome to watch. He was a pleasure to be around too. Very energetic personality. He usually greets you with a hug every day, which not a lot of players do. So he knew he was destined for the major leagues, and he couldn't wait to get there. And he enjoyed his time with us, and he definitely helped us win a lot of games too. Playing with guys who were 3 and 4 years older than him, he gelled on the field with them really well. So yeah, that was a fun. I think we got him for half a season, so maybe 60 games or so, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Let me bring in Matt. Hopefully his server's working. Yeah, Matt, are you there?
Yes, my volume. I could not hear anybody, so
okay.
That's why I had to log in and log out.
Yes, hello to John. And do you have a question for John?
Yeah, John. So just tell everyone what it's like to be a broadcaster. I mean, not many people get to be one, and what does it take in order to become a broadcaster?
Well, it's great. I'm really lucky to do what I do. I know there's a lot of people out there that would love to do it because you're doing a game every day. You're watching professional talent every single day. So that's the best part. I enjoy it a lot because you're kind of on the inside. You're in the locker room. You're talking to front office folks and scouts and media people every day. So that's my favorite part. To get here, there's a lot of luck involved. Like I mentioned earlier, I had a connection with Scott from our Maryland days. He was 2 years older than me, and he had broken in. And he was going to his third team in 3 years. He was finally a lead broadcaster, and I just happened to be looking for an opening around the same time that he was looking for an assistant. So that was the fortunate part. We had called plenty of games together at that point, so there wasn't really an interview process. It was, he needed somebody. I was looking for a spot, and then after that, just a lot of networking. If anyone wants to get into it, I would say to reach out to as many people as you can. When I was an intern in college, I worked a season for the Rays TV broadcast behind the scenes. And I went to Florida State League games that year just to network with the commentators. And I got tipped off by one of their broadcasters that the Rays high A job was open. And I reached out, and I think I had the job about a month later. So if I, hadn't taken the time to go pay for a ticket and go network with those broadcasters, I would have never known that was open. I would have never been where I am now.
That's awesome. And that's really cool. Like you said, networking, you just go to, did you, when you were in the University of Maryland, when you did baseball games and you go to different Big Ten schools or whenever you were in, they were in the Big Ten, right? Before they switched over?
ACC, actually. I got 1 year of the Big Ten. My senior year was Maryland's first year in the Big Ten. Okay.
Yeah, so going around the ACC when you were in school is probably pretty cool because there's some legendary broadcasters. There's Wake Forest. There's a great broadcaster. What's his name? Stephen Cohen. And then you have other people in different areas, and it's pretty. You probably just went and just picked your brain, like, hey, how do I get a job? And and like me, hey, I have my own podcast, but I would love to one day to sit down and do a play-by-play. But hey. This is fun for me anyway. Yeah. So,
I got to meet a lot of great broadcasters. I did the last ever ACC tournament for Maryland in 2014. And I remember meeting because you had to share the booth. There was only 2 booths. So when your game was over, the next crew was coming in. So I got to meet almost all the ACC guys then. We actually had a PA announcer at Maryland baseball, Matt Noble. I'm sure if you've been to Terps games, you know his voice. He did several years in the minor league, so he was kind of a good resource for me while I was at Maryland and how to break into minor league baseball. So, yeah, I've definitely picked a lot of brains. That internship I did with the Rays was I was in the major league broadcast booths for 4 months, and I was definitely not shy. I probably wouldn't do it now, but at that point, I would go in pretty much every night and try and strike up a conversation with a different major league broadcaster. And I learned that there's no set way to get there. You just have to, work really hard, hope there's some luck, the right people, and, the timing has to work out. So that was definitely a good lesson. And I noticed a lot of cool tendencies from broadcaster to broadcaster.
Yeah. And you got a question?
Now
Adam goes first, and then you, okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Adam. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now, give us some prospects on the Mighty Muscles we should be looking at, to advance to AA in the future.
So right now, I'm a big prospect guy, obviously being in the minors for a while. So I do pick the brains of scouts, and I have a decent eye now for projectable guys. Our team right now is actually not the best prospect team. I'll give you a few names of guys who have been promoted to high A this year that I did see for the first couple of months. Jarrell Ortega is a really good infielder. I think he'll be a really solid utility guy down the road. Tennessee guy that we drafted last year. And then we've promoted 3 starting pitchers to high A in the past month that I think all of them will be major league starters, which might surprise some people because none of them went in the top 5 rounds. CJ Culpepper was 13th round, just incredibly athletic, hard worker, throws really hard, mid-90s, and has worked hard to develop 5 pitches. Really like his makeup. He has the look of past major league starters I've had. And then the other 2 were a little bit higher picks. They were in the top 10 rounds. I think they were 8th and 9th round. Zebby Matthews, really good fastball, breaking ball combo, pounds the zone. He's even more athletic. He's going to be fun to follow. He might end up as a reliever, but really bright future. Again, another hard worker. And then the same for Corey Lewis. who's interesting. I probably would put him below those other two guys, but I've talked to scouts that have him above those two guys just to kind of pick your poison, your cup of tea. I like the power guys. Those other two guys are mid 90s. Corey Lewis is actually around 90, 91, but he throws 5 pitches and 3 off speeds that he can locate. And then he has a knuckleball as well, which he'll throw 10 to 20% of the time. So I like all 3 of those guys to get to the big leagues. And who knows what the role will be 2 to 3 years from now, but they just have the look of past starters I've had that make it to the big leagues. Those are just a few names. You won't see those guys on the top of the Twins prospect lists. They're kind of more sleepers. I think a couple of them have snuck in to the 20 to 30 range on some lists. We had David Festa last year, who was a great prospect, who's top 10 now for the Twins. I'm a big fan of him as well.
All right, Matt.
Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, to actually follow up with, my next question was going to be a follow-up with what I was talking about before. A lot of individuals I speak to that want to be a broadcaster say, you know what, would it be advantageous if I get a degree in broadcasting? So what is your take with that?
I would say yes. I would say it's definitely helps, no doubt about it. I will also say that you can get better on your own. Most of what I learned about play-by-play, I did not learn in a classroom. I learned by doing it. I didn't have any experience at all until I was about a junior in high school. They kind of threw me into it doing our high school football games. And then again, I didn't know what I wanted to do other than sports coming out of high school. So I just, kind of went for it. And you got to do it. I would say classes are not enough. But when you go to a journalism school or a communication school, it kind of helps you see the bigger picture and understand the business side of it and how it's constantly changing. I went to journalism school, so we learned journalism ethics and, media rights policies and little things like that, I don't use every day, but it's good to know. And you get to meet some really, at Maryland, I met so many great professors who had been a sports reporter, been in locker rooms, clubhouses. They kind of taught me the etiquette of how to deal with players and kind of the whole media side of things. So I would say internships and real life experience are probably more important, but I would definitely say having a degree in it would definitely help, especially if you haven't had any experience.
That's true. Well, John, let me let you go. We got good old Bob Carpenter on the other line. So thanks so much for coming on and keep up the good work down there. And we'll hope to talk to you a little bit more probably in the off season.
Sounds good, guys. Appreciate you having me.
All right, John. Have a great night. See you.
You too.
All right, bye.
And stay cool.
All right. That's John Viegas, who is the voice of the Fort Myers Mighty Muscle. I know this guy has a lot of muscle. He's been a voice of the St. Louis Cardinals, but now he's been with the Washington Nationals for almost their whole existence in D.C. pretty much. So let's bring in Bob Carpenter, who is on the line here. Hi, Bob. How you doing?
Chris, how you doing tonight? Good to talk to you.
Thank you so much for taking your time on your All-Star break. I know a lot of games this past weekend. You played the Texas Rangers and had a little, you beat them on Saturday and a little bit, yesterday. I don't know if you guys won yesterday, but just talk about the first half. What happened in the first half for the Nationals?
Well, I don't know that anything happened that was totally out of the ordinary or maybe was not expected to happen. Our ball club has won 36 games. I think we're on a pace for, let's see, we played 90 games, which is 9 over the halfway point, and we got 36 wins. So I think we're on pace for something in the low to mid 60s right now. Mm-hmm. And obviously you would hope that in the second half they would play better and maybe find a way to get to 70 wins or beyond it, and that would be a really good thing. But right now, I think with the Nationals, it's a different type situation than it is with other ball clubs because it's not all about wins and losses right now. I mean, those are nice things to consider when you win and you try to keep the losing streaks to a minimum, that you don't lose 7 or 8 in a row. And that almost happened on the homestand. They lost the first 5 and then won the last 2. And, it's more with the Nationals about developing young players over the course of the season. C.J. Abrams is now batting up at the top of the lineup. He was down batting 8th, batting 9th. And he, gets a little hot streak right before the break and comes out hitting 245. And, some of the other guys, Luis Garcia's at 271. He's been dropped down in the lineup lately, not hitting maybe as consistently as he was earlier. And then a kid like Lane Thomas, who's still maybe age-wise not the youngest guy out there, but major league experience. When you consider that he's really only in about his second full season as a big league ball player, Lane's hitting over 300. He's been fantastic in right field. And then, young pitchers like Josiah Gray, Mackenzie Gore, some of the guys in the bullpen like Jordan Weems and Mason Thompson and Hunter Harvey. Our ball club is looking at a lot of different things, Chris, other than wins and losses right now. And I don't mean to minimize the win-loss column just because we're in last place by saying those things.
Right.
But everybody knows the Nationals are in a rebuilding mode. They're not contending for a championship this year. If they do, it'll be a shocker in the second half of the season. But right now, they're trying to teach a bunch of young kids how to be major leaguers, how to handle their business every day at the big league level. And I think that we've taken some great steps in that direction so far this year.
Yeah. How is Hunter Harvey doing? Because it seems like he's away from Baltimore. I think when he got drafted, he had that persona of the son of a former major leaguer, a closer. Everybody thought he was going to be like his dad. Do you feel like he's a little more or less pressure down in D.C., not worrying about, he has to be like his father?
Well, I think maybe in the situation our ball club is in, which I just talked about, makes it less of a crucial situation. He has 8 saves. Mm-hmm. He has 5 blown saves. Not all of those have come in the 9th inning. You can get a blown save in the 7th or the 8th inning if you give up a lead. But, I'm looking at his numbers, and he's pitched 39 innings. He has 44 strikeouts. He's walked 12. So his strikeout to walk ratio is almost 4-1, not quite. Opponent's batting average only 200. ERA is okay at 3.20, although ERA doesn't always tell the story of what a reliever is doing. And I think he is getting better as he gets more experience. It's good that we have Kyle Finnegan on the team. Kyle has 11 saves. And again, he has 6 blown saves, but not all of those have been in the 9th inning either. Mm-hmm. So, Hunter can kind of work off of a more veteran guy like Finnegan and, observe some of the things he's doing. The thing we don't have in our bullpen with Carl Edwards Jr. out, and hopefully he's back pretty soon, is a guy who's just been around forever and done about everything you can do. Carl's been a setup guy. He's done a little bit of closing, but he's mainly a setup guy, sometimes a long guy. And we just don't have that veteran guy in the bullpen that the other kids can kind of look up to and say, okay, here's how he does it. Here's how I want to do it. So they're kind of learning a little bit on their own. They're doing their learning in the heat of battle. I don't think that's a bad thing, but you are going to take some lumps when you do that, and they certainly have. But I think we've got, along with Hunter and some of the other guys I talked about in Jordan Weems and Mason Thompson, big, strong kids who can throw the ball extremely hard. And, I think they're getting better all the time. Having said that, we've had some pretty big glitches in the bullpen this year, but those guys have been overworked because some of our starters haven't gone as deep into games as they should. And those two things always work hand in hand with each other. So I think Hunter's doing fine. I think his learning curve is going to be really dramatically increased in the second half of the season. Davey Martinez is giving him more responsibility all the time to pitch in high leverage situations. And that's, to me, for him and for our team and our bullpen, that's going to pay off down the road.
That's cool. Adam, you got a question for Bob?
Yeah. First of all, Bob, it is an honor to talk with you, sir. And you have some SEC power coming in D.C. with Dylan Cruz, Gavin Dugas, and Andrew Pickney that got drafted by the Nationals. So I got to ask you a question. I remember you and Jimmy Dykes doing Mountain West Conference games on Big Monday on ESPN back in the day. So what was it like going around the Mountain West Conference and seeing teams like Utah, New Mexico, San Diego State, every single Monday night?
That was pretty cool. Thanks for remembering that. When the Mountain West broke away from the WAC, which had 16 teams in it, and then the Mountain West was down to about 8 teams. We had some great coaches in that league. The most famous, of course, was Rick Majerus at Utah. Steve Cleveland was a good, solid guy at BYU.
Yes.
Steve McLean was a very good coach, I thought, at Wyoming. And then, of course, you had Steve, last name escaping me, at San Diego State, who had won a national championship at Michigan.
I know who you're talking about.
His name. I've been away from hoops for 7 years now, and it'll come to me.
Yeah, it'll come to me too, Bob. I just thought about
Steve Fisher.
I'm like, I know the guy's name, but I saw it last year.
Steve Fisher?
I'll get it. Yeah, you and I are on the same boat.
Steve Fisher.
Yes,
Steve
there
Fisher.
you go.
Yeah.
It just came to me. I was about to look it up, and all of a sudden the name came to me. He's a guy who had won a national championship, and he got a pretty decent thing rolling at San Diego State. And I really enjoyed the league. Air Force, they would run their motion Princeton type offense, and try to keep games in the 50s and be a headache to people. UNLV had Billy Bano, who went to the NCAA tournament one of his first couple of years out there in Vegas. And, he was on Rick Pitino's staff way back at UMass, and, a guy who's from the East Coast and kind of cut his teeth there. So, yeah, those were fun days. Jimmy and I remain great friends to this day. I think it was about 9 years we worked together.
Yes.
In the Mountain West.
Yes.
But he and I also worked in Conference USA.
Yes,
we did games together. We lived 2 hours from each other because he's over in Northwest Arkansas and I'm in Northeast Oklahoma in Tulsa. And thanks for remembering. Those are fun days. Those are days I will always cherish at ESPN when I got to work with Jimmy and Bill Raftery, Dick Vitale, Digger Phelps, Dan Bonner, a good Virginia guy. Some of the really great analysts over the years at ESPN, I got to work with all of those guys. And those were very fun and formative years for me in my career, even though that was the baseball off season. And I couldn't think of a better way to fill that out than doing college basketball for 4 or 5 months.
That's cool.
Amen. Amen, Bob.
Hey, man, you got a question for Bob?
Yes, Bob. So since you have gone ahead and worked with many famous broadcasters, and you actually mentioned a few, so what was it like working with Digger Phelps and Dick Vitale?
Well, Digger had not been on the air, and he wasn't that far removed from being the coach at Notre Dame and some of the other stuff he was doing. Digger had a great voice for broadcast. And you guys may not know this, but his son-in-law is Jamie Moyer, the left-handed pitcher who won, 269 games in his big league career.
Yes.
Jamie married Digger's daughter, Karen, who's one of the most beautiful, sweetest, nicest people you will ever meet in your life. So Digger and I always had a connection because he knew that I knew Jamie. When I was with the Texas Rangers in the late 80s, Jamie was on our pitching staff for a while. And, so Digger and I had that connection even before we worked together. He was a huge baseball fan, and he was hanging out at Wrigley Field all the time. His daughter, Karen, actually worked on the production staff at WGN TV, and that's how she met Jamie. So anyway, Digger was a lot of fun. He was very opinionated. He didn't mind criticizing coaches or players. And from that aspect, he might have rubbed a couple of people the wrong way here and there, but I think he was pretty true to himself and true to his craft. And I thoroughly enjoyed working with Digger and getting to know him. At that time, I was the play-by-play guy at ESPN for baseball and basketball that they gave all the new analysts to break those guys in. So I was Digger's first guy. I can add to that list some baseball guys like Oral Hershiser and Rick Sutcliffe and, some other guys that I worked with who had never been on the air before. Buck Showalter is a guy that I broke in. Buck didn't stick with broadcasting very long because he always wanted to manage and run a ball club and be back in uniform. But we had a good time when we worked together. So that was kind of cool. And then you asked about Dick Vitale. And Dick is having some more of that throat cancer surgery tomorrow.
Okay.
And I hope and pray and wish that everything goes well for him this second time around with that procedure. because he has been and remains one of the great voices of college basketball. And Dick deserves a lot of credit for the popularity that college basketball now enjoys from his hard work back in the 70s and the 80s after his coaching days were over. But Dick and I are friends to this day. Another guy who's a big baseball fan. He has season tickets to the Rays games. One year when the Nats were down in Miami, he drove across from Sarasota because he wanted to see Steven Strasburg pitch. He had not seen Steven pitch in person. He came up to the booth that night and hung out with us, and that was a lot of fun. And I used to tell people that working 2 hours on a basketball game with Dick Vitale was like hanging on to the wing of a jet airplane for 2 hours, and I was holding on for dear life, letting the game and Dick Vitale drag me off in whatever direction in which we were going to go. And it was a lot of fun, and total respect for him as a person and as a broadcaster, and a guy who has raised millions of dollars for charity and for cancer research, thanks to his old buddy Jim Valvano, who I also got to work with. Fabulous guy. And Dick has kind of taken over a lot of the fundraising efforts of the V Foundation, named after Jim Valvano. And those guys have done some amazing work in raising money for cancer research over the last 20-some years. And, friendships in the business that I will value until the day that I take off the headset for the last time.
That's true. One last question to ask you, Bob. You're going back home Friday night to St. Louis, and you spend a lot of time in St. Louis with the Cardinals. That was one of your styles for broadcasting. What's it like going back to St. Louis for the weekend and getting to see some old friends?
Well, it's pretty cool because two of my three sisters still live there. And my sister Judy, who worked 52 years for the Cardinals and retired 4 years ago, I'll see her, and my younger sister Mary. And, so first of all, it's a family stop for me. And I have numerous cousins and aunts and uncles in the region. Although at my age, it's more cousins than aunts and uncles. But, it's always cool. And, I'm sure I'll see some of my high school buddies. They're big Cardinal fans. They like to talk smack. When we beat them, I like to talk smack to them. And, I still have bragging rights because the Nationals swept the Cardinals in the division, actually the league championship series in 2019 to go to the World Series and beat the Astros. So I still have bragging rights on that one, no matter what happens during the regular season. And it's a great time. And I'm looking forward to getting back with the Nats, seeing how they do. That road trip takes us from St. Louis to Wrigley Field to play the Cubs before we come home. And I look forward to seeing, what the Nats have in store for the second half of the season.
That's true. Well, Bob, I will let you go. I know you want to relax tonight and watch the home run derby. So thank you so much for coming on this evening, and good luck with the second half. And folks, if you want to watch Bob Carpenter, he's on MASN, I guess MASN 2, whatever night, MASN and the Nationals and the Orioles switch back and forth. You could find him on MASN.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me on, and appreciate you guys, and we'll look forward to doing it again sometime soon.
All right, Bob.
You made my night, Bob. Thank you very much.
Great night. See you.
All right. Thanks. See ya.
See you. Bye.
Thank you.
That is the great Bob Carpenter on the program.
It's called Chris. It's called. I forgot to ask Bob to do his signature home run call.
Oh yeah, I have video for that one.
Yeah, and it's like it was.
Yeah, before
I mean, there'd be nights when I couldn't sleep. So, but what I do is I would watch Bob Carpenter and Jimmy Dykes on ESPN, doing all the Mountain West Conference games. So that truly was a treat, Chris. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's great to have some local royalty on our show here. Before we bring in Vernon Turner here, we have a special message by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you're around Twitter on July 12th, you might see this.
Welcome to Leroy's. What can I get for you?
Yes. Oh.
Bringing back the old orange sickle jerseys. And I know this gentleman was part of that back in the early 90s when they had that uniform. Let's bring in Vernon Turner here, the former Buccaneer. So, hi, Vernon. How you doing? I just want to play that for you. I saw that this afternoon. I said maybe he will enjoy seeing that old Buccaneers uniform. So, it's how cool is that coming back out, for this year?
Oh, I'm loving it. I'm loving it, guys. That's I think that's the better uniform.
I
Call
think
me
so.
biased, but that's just me.
Yeah. So, sir, thanks for coming on tonight. Just talking. I was looking at your bio. You went to a small college, like a junior college type, in Tennessee. How did you get to a small junior college? Because normally with your speed, I thought you would have been like drafted by Alabama or who all. How did you get there?
Well, I tell you what, I guess I really did fake it until I made it. To be honest with you, I wasn't really all that good of a football player. To be honest with you.
Okay.
I really wasn't. It was my circumstances that got me to where I landed. Circling back, it was an NAIA school,
Yes.
Mhm.
Carson Newman College.
Yes, I'm very familiar with it up here.
Carson
I'm very
University.
familiar with it.
And 12 and a half hours away from New York. So I was a fish out of water for quite some time. But I loved football almost all my life. And it came from a game that I loved to a game that I had to play. It was just that much. My mom passed when I was a sophomore in high school. My dad passed when I was a freshman in college. And at age 11, this is the God's honest truth, guys. At age 11, my mom made me promise that if anything were to ever happen to her and my dad, that it was my responsibility to keep the family together. And when my dad passed and my aunt moved into my home while I was in college, it took a toll on her. By my senior year, she called me and told me she couldn't do it anymore.
Hmm.
I had to make a decision. I had to make it fast. And guys, I'm telling you, I would consider myself an unbelievably overachiever. I was an average college football player. I was playing my idol's position, Walter Payton.
Nice.
And it went from a point to where if I didn't make it, guys, my brothers and sisters, I'm the oldest of five, they were going to foster care.
Okay.
So it was do or die. So I was ready to die on the field. So
Jeez.
it got to that point to where every single practice was game day for me. And I pulled off an absolute miracle, so much to the point to where it's in my life stories in pre-production for film. So
Yeah, I saw that. I was watching a little bit over the weekend, getting to know you, because you're coming on the show, and I was looking at, you spent time. First of all, you were undrafted, literally undrafted. It's basically they're like, who's this kid? And you signed, and people don't realize being undrafted on draft day. It's kind of like, it kind of takes the wind out of your sails because you're thinking like, oh, I'm going to get picked by, the Bills and these people, and you don't get picked. And what was the feeling like knowing like, okay, now I have to go find a team. And hopefully I can, stay with that club and make a name of myself.
well, my whole mindset it wasn't normal because again, I was in desperation mode.
Mm-hmm.
So before I started my training, I wrote a letter to Walter Payton and told him about my situation. A couple of weeks later, just under 3 weeks, I received a letter, Walter Payton, and he gave me his training regimen, and I worked it religiously.
Wow.
I was at the beginning before I 8.5 weeks. I was running before I started the training regimen. I was running mid 4.5s. By the time I got done, the very first team I worked out for, guys, was the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
And it was a 4.38 and a 4.37. That's what I clocked.
Wow.
And it was again, I was obsessed. I would set my clock for 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning when I knew my opponents were asleep, and I would work out. I was that obsessed with it. But again, I was in desperation mode, and it was something because I got some momentum. I went from a guy that no one knew to when I started working, I worked out 38 times for 38 different teams.
Wow.
I mean, for 38 times, and some teams I worked for 2 and 3 times. And by the time I got done, I thought I was going to get drafted. And back then, guys, remember, they had 12 rounds. So there was a chance. And I didn't even get drafted to 12 rounds. So it was a setback. But at the end of the day, I had like several teams wanting to sign me as a free agent. And I signed with the Denver Broncos right out of the gate. And long story short, I thought I was going to make the team until I got to that last preseason game, and the pressure was just too much. I dropped in the preseason game. I dropped punts. I dropped a pass. And the next thing you know, Dan Reeves is calling me in his office telling me that, hey, young man, you're going to have a fine career, but it's not going to be with the Broncos. Yeah. And then the next day, I got a call and to tell me that the Buffalo Bills wanted to sign me on their practice squad. And that was the moment. People say, what's your greatest moment of your career? And everybody talks about that punt return with the Buccaneers, which, don't get me wrong, guys, that was something I will never forget. But yeah,
There
but yeah,
I found it for you. A little high step in there. A little Deion Sanders. Did you grab that from Deion?
Everybody thinks that was a high step, but it was a hesitation. Now, I still say that to this day, but my word doesn't count. Is whatever the people think is fine. It's okay. But I was hesitating. But then they thought that I was mimicking my idol, Walter Payton. So it was a moment because it was against a team that cut me the year before. So the Detroit Lions cut me the year before, and I got it. It was payback,
Yeah.
But
how's it feeling like when you got they cut you, and then you took this kickoff back? Was it like one of those like you want to like put your nose in the air and like, look, see, I could do this, better than you could have caught me. You could have kept me on your roster.
No, I had a few screws loose when I played. I was like, off the field, VT was a completely different person than the person that was playing, because if you check the two DNAs, it would be different. I mean, I was a mean SOB on the football field. I was like, and I had that mean streak I was a little James Cagney. So I loved the game. I wish I would have enjoyed my career more. I enjoy it more now than I did when I played, because I played in desperation mode. I played 6 years, and all 6 years I was playing in desperation mode just to keep my family together. But I look back at it now and I'm like, wow, I actually pulled that off. I pulled it off. Yeah.
But at that time, you were focused on keeping your family together. You didn't even take the time back and step back like, hey, I just scored a touchdown. That's cool.
It didn't register. Honestly, I did not enjoy my career. Literally, I did not enjoy it because I was always worried about my family. I was worried about getting cut. I was worried about, okay, how am I gonna provide for my family? And I've always been that way. But when I finally got to a point where the family was good, that's when I retired. Because I was going year round, nonstop football. It wasn't a stopping point for me. If it wasn't the season, I was training.
Right.
So I was always nonstop. So it wasn't until I retired and I let about between 5 and 7 years go by, and I didn't even look at football. Didn't even look at it. And then I started hearing the stories on what my journey, how it impacted other people. And then I started loving the game again, because it helped me save my family. So I owe big time. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Man, you got a question for Vernon?
Yeah. So, since you were in the NFL and everything, just what was one obstacle that you had, and how did you overcome that obstacle?
Well, I guess the one thing I wanted to make sure was that I never wanted to be that guy that was afraid of. I guess I lived by the motto of, I'm not afraid of failing. I'm not, guys, but I am absolutely terrified of not trying. So everything I did, I put my heart and soul into. And I guess my fear was just not giving it my all. I didn't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. I tricked myself. I thought I was a really, really good football player. I really did. I tricked myself to the point to where I made it into the National Football League. But to be honest with you guys, I was not that good of a football player. If it weren't for the circumstances of me needing to save my family, there's no way in hell I would have made it into the National Football League. I was not that good. So I can look back, and these young athletes today can look and say, hey, if he can make it, goodness gracious, I can make it. You know, I want to be that example.
Exactly. Adam, you got a question?
Yeah, I was looking at your bio, and after the NFL, you played for 3 years in NFL Europe. So, what was it like to play over in Europe?
Well, what was pretty cool about that is that it wasn't so much me wanting to play football anymore, but I wanted to travel, and I didn't want to pay for it. So I wanted to travel throughout Europe, and to do that, I had to play in NFL Europe. So I didn't have to pay for it, and that actually they gave me money to go out there and play football. But my experience there was just the ambiance, the different, you know, Spain, Barcelona, Germany, you know, it was Amsterdam, Scotland. It was a dream come true. It's not too many people can pull that off. So it was more or less for the travel aspect, for the experience of traveling abroad. And it was an unbelievable experience. I met a lot of people that I'm still friends with today.
Cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, and European football, you know, NFL Europe was around way before it was like the World League, and then the NFL took it over, and then they haven't done anything since. Now they got all these games going to London and Germany and all that stuff. You know, you probably, you know, wish they bring that back, because I think that helped you, you know, catapult yourself into different, you know, jobs with the NFL, right?
Well, to be honest with you, I never had an interest in like working within the NFL community outside of actually playing. But I really did have a great time in meeting different people. Like, you know, playing against the Kurt Warners, which he played in I think he played on Amsterdam, I think. He was in the NFL Europe when I played in NFL Europe. You know, so there was some marquee players, all Hall of Famers, that actually played in NFL Europe. So the experience aspect of it was priceless, to be honest with you, because again, not too many people get a chance to travel abroad like that and experience different cultures. So it was fun. Now they have XFL, they have what is it now?
USFL and everything.
USFL. And I don't know if they have that alliance football anymore. I don't know if they have that.
No, I don't know.
No, they don't have that, but they got arena footballs. It's like they got, you know, arena football league going to start up again. That's what I heard next year. Like, you know, they're bringing that from the dead, pretty much.
Well, I think it's great that they have these other leagues, because it's not too many people get an opportunity to play at that other level, at the highest level, the NFL. And there are so many athletes that just love the game and they want to play it in some way. And to have these other outlets, I endorse it. I support it. I think it's great. I just hope it does better. You know, I hope it has a better crowds and give these guys just another opportunity to play in the National Football League, to show their talent. So that's the most important part of it, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Vernon, thank you so much for coming on. We'd love to have you on another time. And also tell the folks that you have an NFL Films thing that can they go out and find it, you know, on.
Yeah. They can go on YouTube, actually go on YouTube or Facebook and just type in the search Promise Kept and then hit post, and that'll be the first thing you come up. It went viral. I mean, it's a little bit overwhelming for me to see. I only saw it twice.
Wow.
I can't see it. Yeah, it's too deep for me, and I lived it. So, and then, you know, I'm an author as well. So I have my book that Beyond the Limits, Finding My Purpose. You can get that on Amazon, and that'll give you a really good insight on my journey. Again, guys, I only got a third. Only saw a third of my life journey in that NFL segment. But once the film comes out, your jaw's going to drop.
I'm looking forward to it.
We will. All of us will watch it, you know, in the coming weeks or so. So thank you so much for coming on, and keep up the good work with your books and everything else. And thanks for coming on, and I'll keep in touch with you.
Thanks, guys, for having me on. Thank you.
Yes,
all
sir.
right,
All right, guys. Bye.
See you. Bye. All right, it's Vernon Turner, the former Buccaneer special teamer who have spent time with the Rams and the Lions. You know, he has a NFL Films video out there about his life. That is very touching, that he basically gambled on himself.
Yes.
As a gamble, to get himself to the NFL. And a lot of people don't do that. Yeah. I don't know if Matt's frozen. Matt, are you frozen?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you're frozen. I know.
I am?
Yeah, your facial expression is like very serious.
Yeah.
Well, hello. Am I frozen now?
No, let me log you off and log back in. Okay, it might be just some internet bug or something. All right, try again. All right.
Okay.
All right. Matt will be joining us. Yeah, he was sitting there like this.
Yep. Yep.
I'm like, is he alive or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, go to our Twitter page, folks. On Herb FM, I put a polling question up. Who will win the home run derby tonight in Seattle? Right now, as we speak, let's see here.
I think Pete Alonso is leading the poll, Chris.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, the polar bear. Yes, the polar bear.
Yeah, because that's actually who I picked to win the home run derby tonight was polar bear. Oh yeah.
Were you the first one to pick it? Because I was like,
no. So I think it was 82%. Pick Pete Alonso.
Yeah, let me see here. All right, let me go to right now with 7 votes, it's 6-1 in favor of Pete. Who is basically the modern day version of Dave Kingman. Yeah.
Oh yes, Chris. Oh, Dave Kingman. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got some footage of Dave Kingman. Let me get rid of one of these videos here. Hold on a second here. Wait for Matt to log back in. They looked exactly the same. If you look at Dave Kingman, this is back in the late 70s. At the time, he was playing for the Chicago Cubs. Yeah, hold on a second, and hopefully this video is working. Come on. All right, here it is. So here's Dave Kingman.
In recent weeks, he made a statement advising Kingman to do just what Kingman said.
All right, so here he is, being for the Chicago Cubs. Whoa, look at that drive. Gone. That's out of Dodger Stadium.
The Twins here in the eighth. Alonso with an enormous blast to put the Mets up 11-3.
I mean,
here's Pete's home run. This is a couple years ago in Minnesota.
Of hitting this ball out of the stadium. Hanging
Watch
slider,
this.
second in a row, 2-0 and 2-1. Did not miss it.
Boom.
Now watch
Did
where
not
this
miss it,
lands.
of course. Now watch where this
That's
lands.
halfway up the third deck.
Halfway
That's
up.
halfway up
Almost
the third
out
deck.
of the stadium.
Wow.
Halfway up.
Unbelievable.
Almost out of the stadium.
Do you see that? Halfway up third deck.
Yeah, I was like,
if you look at them, Adam, they both are identical.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because I was looking at it today when I was at work. I was watching Dave Kingman. I'm like, wait a minute. And I had to go to Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso basically has the same stance as Dave Kingman.
Yeah.
One's a polar bear, the other one he was called King Kong.
Yeah.
Yeah. My dad told me a story about what's his name? Dave Kingman hitting one out of Shea Stadium.
Yeah.
And it hit a school bus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and literally damaged a couple windows.
Oh,
yeah,
well, that's the story. Oh, that's cool, Chris.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically the polar bear and Dave Kingman. If you look at it, before we bring in our next guest, we want to welcome. We want to get everybody to join us next week. Hopefully, we'll bring this up here. Next Monday night here on the program, our good friend and who we see every time here during football season, our good friend Mike Burnup, the old tight end for the Virginia Tech Hokies, who played back in the early 70s. He was a tight end for Bruce Arians, who was the quarterback.
Yep, and and also to let our viewers know, in 2 weeks from tonight, Chris and I will be making our way to ACC kickoff in Charlotte, so we'll have plenty of interviews with coaches and players as we get you ready for the upcoming ACC schedule. And Chris, Florida State looks like they want to bring home another ACC championship to Tallahassee because this year there are no divisions in the ACC.
No, there's not. So, you want to bring the next guest in? Go ahead.
Yeah, sure will. Our next guest is the voice of a football team that's making the transition from the Big South Conference to the CAA, and they actually open up their inaugural season in the CAA with a conference game against the William and Mary tribe. So to get us in the mood of CAA football, let's bring in the voice of the Campbell Fighting Camels. And I know he's ready for college football season just as much as Chris and I. So Chris, here he is, folks. The voice of the Campbell Fighting Camels, Chris Hemeyer.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hey Chris,
talk to us about what's it going to be like, calling games in the CAA compared to the Big South.
Well, we're excited to be in the CAA for a lot of reasons. We've had an unbelievably successful stretch here in the Big South, and quite frankly, we know to get where we want to go and to continue getting bigger and better as an athletic department on the rise, that the CAA is the place to go. Obviously, I don't have to tell you guys about the history of not only the athletics but the university. This wasn't just a move for athletics. There's so many reasons why Campbell is going to the CAA for athletics, but our administration, our university, they wanted to align themselves with not only the great athletic institutions, but also the great academic institutions that range all the way up on the East Coast. It was really a move too, where Campbell, that had been a kind of smaller state and then regional, they really think that they have what it takes athletically and on the academic side to expand up into the Mid-Atlantic and to the Northeast, and to continue getting bigger and better. So people around here couldn't be more excited to join the CAA.
Yeah, I think it's great for the program because you also come in with North Carolina A&T. So you guys played each other last year in a Big South game. So now it's a new conference, and you guys have a familiar face. But you have played everybody in the CAA maybe once or twice. You played William and Mary back in I think the last time you played them back in 2020 or 2021 or something. It was one of those first time meetings, and it was a close game, so you almost pulled one out. So I guess William and Mary needs to watch the film, probably.
Well, actually, it was even closer than that. That was a game at the beginning of the year last year, and it was a game that was on the schedule before Campbell even knew or thought that they knew that they were in the CAA. But when that game was put on the schedule, that was so far into the future that people wouldn't have thought that it would have been a preview. Of course, William and Mary was a ranked team at that time. Campbell ended up losing by 16, but their quarterback who returns this year, one of the best players in the Big South, who's going to be really electric and entertaining for CAA fans to watch, is Haj Malik Williams. He's a veteran, and he, quite frankly, he'll tell you, he had one of the worst games of his career. He ended up throwing 3 interceptions in that game, and one of the many great things that Williams does is not turn the ball over, and he turned the ball over in that game. Campbell still came back after a rough start and made it a game and made it a close game, as we know William and Mary's success that they have. So that gives Campbell some confidence, but I don't know if that's the team that Campbell not only wants to open up their CAA season with, but that's the first game of the season, guys. That's going to be on Thursday night, August 31st. Luckily, it is down here, but the scheduling gurus at the CAA wanted to make sure we knew what CAA football was all about. Campbell has Delaware, Elon, and Maine also on their CAA home schedule. So trying to make a point there, and I and I definitely agree with them. But this is a football team that's really on the rise, guys. 2008 was the first year that Campbell even had a football team. For 10 years, they were a non-scholarship FCS team. They played in the Pioneer League, and that was the right move at the right time because Campbell was really able to get their head above water pretty quickly to go from no team to a team that had a winning record and went 6-5 in just 4 years. Enter Mike Minter, who around these parts in the Carolinas, he is revered. He is revered.
Yeah.
For a decade, Mike Minter anchored the defense in the secondary of a team that made a couple of NFC Championship games, went to the Super Bowl, and like many, got beat by Tom Brady and a last second field goal. So he was the right guy to take over this program. He truly put Campbell football on the map. He's been getting guys into NFL camps. And he got 3 guys in the NFL camps this year, including 2 homegrown guys that he got out of high school. And for the past 2 years, fellas, he has gotten the #1 FCS high school recruiting class in the nation.
Wow.
Back-to-back years, he has gotten that kind of talent to come to Bowie's Creek. Young guys are still young guys, no matter how many stars they have by their name. And he'll be the first to tell you, and I know he's going to be happy when he watches this, and he knows that I'm saying this line. He's telling everybody that this is a different level of football. He's been calling it the SEC of FCS, and he's warning everybody that it is going to be, as you guys know, I mean, I think I'm a little biased now, but the best FCS conference in the entire nation. So he's warning everybody that even though there'll be a lot of guys with a lot of stars by their name and another great recruiting class, that this is going to be a battle each and every game.
It is. Yes. In the CAA, it's like any given Saturday, you got I'm near Towson, like 20 minutes away from Towson. And, I just love the competition in the CAA. There's like, New Hampshire, they still keep rolling because, Coach Mack has retired, but, his old quarterback took over, so he keeps the same system rolling. And the same thing with Elon, keeping, Elon was part of the Big South too for a while, right? So you guys probably saw them for a couple times, right?
Well, Elon wasn't a part of the Big South, but they are just an hour and a half away from the campus. And you had mentioned it, Chris, a little earlier, but it was interesting to say, a lot of people are thinking, okay, why is Campbell joining the CAA? They're going to have to, go up to Boston and go up to Long Island to play. But there are 5 opponents that are as close as our 5 closest opponents in the Big South. Elon and NCA&T is just an hour and a half away. UNCW, who is a traditional rival for Campbell, even though they've never been in the same conference, they've been playing each other since the 1940s when both of those schools were junior colleges. They're 2 hours away. And so that's an exciting game. College of Charleston is just 3 hours down the road. And, of course, William and Mary in Hampton, just 3 hours up the road. So we truly are, especially with football, really more reachable in a lot of games than we were in the Big South. And it's a whole lot of bus rides. I mean, Campbell football is only getting on a plane once, and that's when they go up to Monmouth. So it's really a good move for that too. Geographically, it's a fit, yet it expands the reach of Campbell University and reignites those old rivalries. You mentioned it. We play UNCW in pretty much everything, and Elon's the same way. Elon, a very similar school, a smaller private school from North Carolina.
Yeah, and plus, speaking of North Carolina, you're taking on North Carolina this year, so
yeah.
So that's a little, I guess you got them before they take on North Carolina State, so it's kind of like one of those like special games. You guys get a good paycheck to help, boost up the facilities and all that stuff, but hopefully you can pull an upset and knock North Carolina off the ACC mat a little bit, So
oh my gosh, yeah, we're hoping that they've been they've been through the ringer by that time, and you're right that could be the ultimate trap game right there. But those are the games, usually you play those games in September when you're a fully healthy team and you're ready to go, and you maybe surprise them. So I don't know what condition each team is going to be on in November, but that's exciting, and that's an exciting thing that has happened. When Campbell was an FCS non-scholarship team, they couldn't play the FBS teams even for a paycheck. And so it's been exciting over the last couple of years. Last year, Campbell playing East Carolina. Campbell will play NC State in a couple of years. Campbell will go down to the Swamp and play Florida. And so that is something, too, that has truly put Campbell football on the map. A lot of people around North Carolina know Campbell football, but the fact that now they're playing the big boys and getting these recruiting classes, people around here are really proud of quote unquote really young football program.
Yeah, and like you said, you're playing Florida in a couple of years. You're playing. You just played East Carolina. These are things that these players who come to Campbell like, wow, we're going to the Swamp. And I know you're going to get down to the Swamp, get your butt kicked, but it's a great experience. You get a chance to play in the Swamp, and nobody gets an opportunity to play in the Swamp. And and that place is and anybody comes in from a road team from the SEC, if you win a game near in the Swamp, you're good. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's something that one of the many things that has made this program attractive. I told you, Mike Minter has done a great job of getting talent to come to this place from high school and all across the country, guys. If you look at the roster, it's in the Southeast in Florida, but they're getting guys from California. They've got a pipeline from California now that are making literally a trip across the United States to come and play for Campbell. And what has happened now because of Mike Minter, the former pro, that is getting guys into NFL camps, that has a lot of NFL connections, that literally knows as a player what it takes to get to the NFL and stay in the NFL. He's been attracting a lot of FBS transfers that are dropping down. Hey, look, if you are at North Carolina State or Duke or UNC or East Carolina, and you're not getting the playing time you want, but you're still from around the area, or you like the area and you want to play close to home, we're just down the road. We're 45 minutes from Raleigh and NC State. We're maybe just about an hour away from Chapel Hill and UNC, a little bit over an hour away from Duke, 2 hours from ECU. So this is fertile grounds to get those FBS guys that want to stick around here and play for a good coach and a good team, and now in a good conference. So things are looking up for Campbell, but it's certainly going to be a battle. As you said, you said it right. Each and every week, you're going to play a good team, and probably a team that has either been to the playoffs or will be going to the playoffs, and it's going to be exciting.
And Adam, you live in Asheville, North Carolina, so
so it's like
hopefully get you a pass for that game against North Carolina. Maybe we'll send you.
Chris, we'll miss you guys in the Big South, since you don't get a chance to play UNC Asheville anymore. But when you go up to New England, I'll give you some advice. If you like seafood, head to New Hampshire, head to Maine, and go get you some lobster when you get the chance, because New England has some of the best seafood you'll ever eat in your entire life, being from there.
Man, I tell you what, Boston is, and I don't know where your guys' allegiances are, so excuse me if I'm offending you right here. Boston is one of my favorite cities in the United States. It is awesome, and that's one of the things that's going to be so great. Campbell, traditionally, they have some ties with the Mid-Atlantic. Back in the 1960s and 70s, if you can believe it or not, this really wasn't a fertile ground, even in North Carolina, that's become a soccer hotbed for soccer. Campbell started a soccer team, got a bunch of dudes from Philly and DC and Baltimore to come on down here to the South and play in good weather. And they stayed here. They married Southern girls. They started coaching soccer, and they really planted the seeds of soccer here. So Campbell is really excited to get back to their Mid-Atlantic roots. And hey, look, there's some Campbell alums that are up in Boston and that are on New England and in Long Island that probably haven't seen a Campbell game in person in 20, 30, or 40 years. And that's going to be the really exciting thing, whether it's on the football field or in the gym for basketball or even volleyball or baseball or softball. Of course, Campbell having such a strong baseball team. But
Yes.
it's really going to be fun and exciting to get to these new places for Campbell. Now, ask me that when I'm getting off the bus in November, playing Stony Brook and whatever that weather's going to be, or New Hampshire or Maine. I might have a few other adjectives to describe
Yeah, I
what
know.
I'm feeling.
I know,
What
I
I'm
know where
feeling
you're
right
going,
there.
Chris.
You're reading it right now.
It's
But
called-
I tell you what, right now, when the weather's great up there, I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah, it's called. You call it Chris. I lived in New Hampshire for 13 years. So it's called. I'm used to. So when I moved down here to the Smoky Mountains, it was like I don't have to deal with 6 feet of snow. I don't have to deal with below zero. It's called. It's nice. It's warm. So So it's like so when you guys go up to New Hampshire and Maine in November, make sure you bring your winter coat.
Oh man, and look, but make no mistakes about it. That's a recruiting pitch. When we go up and have some recruits that come to our games in whatever sport it is, we're going to say, hey, you can come down to North Carolina and throw your ice scraper away. You can come down to North Carolina and play a February game on your home field without long sleeves and a coat on. I also tell people too that are kind of wondering, hey, why are you guys joining the CAA? Some from around here that have been fans for a long time. Campbell was a team that founded the Big South Conference way back when, before going to the Atlantic Sun and then coming back. But look, Campbell's baseball team has been incredible, ranked in the top 15 for the majority of this year. They should have hosted a regional for their fifth NCAA tournament appearance, but you know what? They didn't, because the strength of schedule when they got into conference play was so poor. That won't be a problem in the CAA. So I say, hey, number one, if you want some of these teams that are really good and are playing great non-conference schedules, but then gets into conference and it pulls them down in the Big South, that will not be a problem in the majority of sports in the CAA. So I know we're talking football here, but man, it's not just football. It's really all across the board that's really going to up the level of Campbell.
Well, hopefully we'll send Adam to that North Carolina game, because I think it'll be great. And maybe
Please do.
Yeah, maybe you could help us to get on the list for North Carolina so we can cover it for you guys. Maybe Adam could get some good interviews after the game. But it'll be great to have you guys in the league and welcome to the CAA. And on behalf of the commissioner, who I know really well, and I was trying to get him on the show, but he's on vacation. But we'll probably have some media thing sometime before August or something. We don't know when, but Commissioner Antonio says, I think he's happy to have you guys as a member, and we're happy to have you there too. And hopefully this league will still be the league that everybody likes, even if James Madison moves on to the Sun Belt. Who cares?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, these conferences always change, but with Campbell, the Big South has had to merge with the OVC to just get an automatic bid, and it has been a constantly rotating team of conferences that come in. There's only 3 full-time members in the Big South that have football, and that was a big reason too. Look, some teams are going to go in and out of the CAA, but they're not going to lose their core. They're not going to lose their geographic footprint, and they've built up with a lot of teams, and those teams are going to stay in. And quite frankly, Campbell's ready for another challenge. In the Big South, they've had an incredible 6 titles over the last 49 titles over the last 6 years, 22 over these last 2 years. They know the trophies aren't going to come as easily in the CAA, but that's a challenge that this athletic department wants, and we can't wait to get in a place with the tradition and the great universities academically and athletically. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we can't wait to be in there.
Yeah, we can't wait to start talking CAA football. So we'll hope to talk to you more, getting close to that game, and hopefully get your coach on, and we'll get that big preview going. So
definitely, we would love it. We would love it. Thank you so much for having us on. It means a lot.
Yes.
All right, Chris. Thanks so much, and keep up the good work down there. And we'll talk to you sometime in the middle of August.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Yes,
see you later. See you, Chris. All right. See you. Bye. All right. This is Chris Heemeyer, who is the voice of the Campbell football down there in beautiful Bull Creek, North Carolina. Is that what it is? Am I saying?
Creek.
Bucs Creek. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not from North Carolina. I'm a New Yorker.
I know, Chris. I know you're a New Yorker. It's called.
Yeah.
I mean,
hey, I know about the weather up there in New York. Like this time of year, it's nice, and by the time November, like October, November, you're like, oh god.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I know this gentleman who's coming up on a program. I know he was drafted by the New York Mets, but didn't get a chance to play with the Mets. But he spent some time with the Reds and the Dodgers and the Red Sox and the Astros, and he spent his last couple of years in the Rockies organization. Let's bring in Kip Gross, who he has to bring out the Red Sox hat. So
thank you. I have to.
Hey, Kip, how you doing? Welcome to the program, and thanks for coming on tonight.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, so I was doing some research. So you were drafted by the New York Mets, and at the time, the Mets won the World Series in '86. You were in the farm system for 3 years, and then what did they do? Just tell you, did they shift you off to Cincinnati, or what happened there?
Well, it was after my third year. Yeah, you got to kind of protect somebody. So I got traded with Randy Myers to the Reds.
Okay.
And it was basically they were just trading at that time. They had that big trade the winter before, or that year before with Minnesota, and they pretty much got rid of all the arms in the Met system. And then myself and I was happy to be traded, to be honest with you, because that time they had a pretty good rotation in New York and pitching staff, period. So if you look back at those guys, they had a really good staff. So I was happy to be traded.
Yeah, I didn't realize you spent some time in Port St. Lucie, and then you made it all the way to Tidewater, or now Norfolk, if you want to say Norfolk, but back then it was Tidewater Tide. So what was it like playing down in Norfolk? Because I guess that's a great little it's a good seaport. I was there for a couple games, and I like that stadium. Their stadium they have. It's really cool. It's all Met history. There's no Orioles history at all in that ballpark. It's funny. It's like you walk around. It's like everything is all Dwight Gooden, Strawberry, Mookie Wilson. I'm like, okay, the Orioles have this team for 5-6 years, or even longer than that, and there's no Oriole stuff there. It's like what's going on here?
Yeah, Tidewater was fun. I mean, I only played there for about a half a season because I was in Double-A to start the season, and that was just one of those things that was kind of a blur for me because it went so fast in Double-A, and then got moved up to Triple-A and was ecstatic because Triple-A is one step away, and so you get there, and I didn't have the best of time as far as pitching wise going there, but learned a lot when I was there. Mike Cubbage was my manager. And it just seemed like every inning I'm giving up a couple hits. And one day I think we're actually playing the Orioles, who it was, on the road, in the farm system. And so he comes up to me mid game while I'm starting, and he says, Kip, you got to learn to elevate the fastball once in a while, because I was a sinker ball pitcher.
All right.
Well, I just kept throwing down because it worked for all the other teams I'd played for. And so they were just getting little hits here, little hits there, on the ground, and they were going through. And so you got to learn to start moving that ball around a little more. So it was a big learning curve for me at that point.
Yeah, in 1990, you were on the Reds, but were you called up late in the season because you weren't on the postseason roster? But did you get a chance to still get a ring?
Oh yeah, I got a ring. It's
awesome. Okay, I was just wondering about that. I was like, wait a minute, he was on. You picked because I had your final start of the year against Houston. Right here a little bit, on ESPN. I found this, and I was like, wow, this is old. And I'm like, okay, and I'm looking through all the rosters yesterday, doing my research, and we had this big thunderstorm here in Maryland. I'm like, okay, why is he not on the postseason roster? If he was pitching, I guess he didn't have enough innings, or what happened there?
It was just a matter of numbers and who was there for most of the year. I mean, Tim Lyon they didn't put him on the roster, and he was pissed. God rest his soul. He's gone now. But it was just a matter of who they thought they were going to use and who they didn't think they were going to use. And I mean, Tim Lyon was on the roster the entire season.
Oh, wow.
Really well all year. He's actually the reason the Nasty Boys were called the Nasty Boys, because of his knuckle curve. Somebody started saying that's just nasty. And so they started calling those guys the Nasty Boys because of his knuckle curve. People don't really know that.
Yeah. And people don't really Norm Charlton was a starter. I was watching an old Reds versus Phillies, and he's like, and what's his name? Harry Cowles was like, yeah, here's Norm Charlton starting. I'm like, what? I was like,
Norm.
Yeah.
Norm was probably one of the best guys you've ever had on a team ever. He was and he was the best. He had the best stuff of anybody on that entire roster, no question about it. They look at Dibble and Myers and a couple other guys on there, but no, Norm has it up here, and I think he had three different degrees at Rice University, so he's really
wow.
And left-handed, and he had balls of steel, man. I mean, you saw what he did to Socia running him over at home plate. The guy was probably the favorite teammate I had of all time, not a question about it. He was just a really good teammate. I still talk to him this day via Facebook, a couple other ways. So, but yeah, that was something else there.
That's cool. I know this kid right here, Adam, is wearing a Red Sox hat. It's okay because I know you played for the Red Sox for like a year or so. So it was like, go ahead, Adam. Ask
me. Okay, Kip. It's called. What was it like to play with the Red Sox and pitch at Fenway Park?
Well, I'll tell you what. Because I'm just the most honest guy on the planet. Playing at Fenway was awesome. Playing for the GM there wasn't.
Gotcha.
Early on in the season there, I think we were playing Tampa Bay, and I had my second to last out of the inning was a line drive back at me, and it hit square on my pinky, and it broke it in places. And there's a story about this that went on and on. I actually almost went to arbitration at the end of the season. They wouldn't even X-ray it. They wouldn't do a thing. It was the most bizarre thing. My hand was so swollen up and black and blue, it was crazy. And it was like, no, it's not there. Don't worry, just keep pitching. And I had some painkillers that I was taking, and I was able to pitch for probably about 2 or 3 more weeks to do it. But I ran out. They wouldn't help me with anything. They didn't even doctor wouldn't look at me.
Wow.
Great ever. And so it was basically the beginning and the end for my career, because at that time I was relying on my circle change, which you throw off your pinky. And I still have the X-rays downstairs in my storage room of my hand, but they just wouldn't even recognize it. So it was a great thing. So Fenway, though, I got to tell you, it was that's pretty special. I got to it was a good pitch there. It was fun.
That's just not right. Nowadays, you probably get a lawsuit and you probably be a rich guy right now. Yeah. If you sued them,
It was just the most bizarre thing. I mean, I was there icing every day, putting it in the hot tub, back and forth, contrasting, and it was just crazy. Like, why aren't you guys recognizing that this thing is hurt? And so I ended up having to go to the emergency room. I went to the emergency room on my own just to see if anything was wrong with it. And they took X-rays. Sure as hell, it was broken 2 places. And they told the funniest thing. They actually said to me, they said, "Oh, you went to the emergency room, one of those kind of doctors." And I'm just like,
what are you supposed to do? Patient first at 8:00 at night. You need to go. Come on.
Yeah.
It was a hard situation.
Yeah, that's weird. I'm sorry you had that bad experience up there. That's crazy.
There was quite a few of them that year that were having to go through stuff. So yeah, it was just, I heard about it too before I went there and signed that they have some strange stuff with medical issues and things that happen there. And I said, there's no way. This is the big leagues. They can't have these issues like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yep.
It was true. Yep.
That's crazy. Well, you spent some time in LA, and you also spent some time in the Rockies organization. So that must be pretty cool, with the Dodgers. You came from the Reds to the Dodgers. So it was like, I guess, what was it like playing in LA?
LA was fun. I mean, that was probably my most favorite stadium to play in by far. The whole place, the LA area, everything going on there, just so much to do, so much fun around there. Teammates were great. Roger McDowell was my roommate for a couple of years. We just had a blast there, and no regrets whatsoever. It was just, there was just a lot to learn. It was one of those things you go from the Reds, which a pitching staff where I wanted to stay there. Actually, I mean, don't get me wrong. I wasn't upset I got traded to the Dodgers at all, but Dodgers always known for their pitching. So, you think they're really high on you and all your stuff that you do throw up there. But, you go from that pitching staff to the other pitching staff, and then the Dodgers just weren't very good at that time. And it was a struggle. I mean, you walk in the clubhouse a lot of nights and after the game, and it was just everybody's heads are down. Lasorda's walking around, cussing up a storm to himself. And it was just, you want to play for a winner, but at the same time, it's nice to experience these things like that with the losing, just because that's part of life. And, to me, that's what baseball is all about, is part of life, and what do you do with it? So, but LA was fun. LA was a blast.
And you had Vin Scully calling your games at Dodger Stadium. I mean, that's probably pretty cool to have a legendary broadcaster, announcing your games, at Dodger Stadium. I mean, I bet you got stories of Vin Scully. Kip.
We went on a trip to Asia. We went to Japan for about 7 or 8 days. I can't remember how long it was. It was a friendship series in '93, I think it was, in the winter. And Vince Scully and his wife were on the trip, obviously, and I got to talk to him quite a bit during that trip because during the season you kind of stay out of the way of all that kind of stuff. You don't go up in the booth, and so during that trip I got to talk to him, and he was one of the most, probably the nicest guy I ever met in my life. To be honest with you. It was just the way he spoke was just like he spoke on the radio, and on it was crazy how he just said the words that he said, and everything was just crisp and clear, everything he says. And so I took a lot away from that. And when he passed away this last year, it was disheartening because people like that, you just want to stick around forever and ever. And now you've got the broadcasters out there that all they talk about is miles per hour and all these different launch angle numbers and speeds and all this different stuff. And I don't remember him even doing any of that. And he was the favorite of everybody. So I would think that somebody would come around and try to emulate what he did for his career because he was fantastic.
Yeah, I like all the old school broadcasters because they painted a picture while you're watching. When you're listening to the radio, like up in New York, Bob Murphy, listening to him for the Met games, and then when I was a kid, I'm like, he made me feel like I was at the ballpark, sitting there watching the game, and down here in Maryland, we had Chuck Thompson, the Orioles, he ain't the beer cold and all the Colts stuff, and and Vin Scully and all those are we're losing all the good broadcasters, and we just had Bob Carpenter on, and I think he's one of the old school broadcasters that worked his tail off, and he's I know he's in DC with the Nationals, but everybody knows him from his days on ESPN.
Yeah, it is. It's just true. All these guys from the old school, they didn't have all these other technologies, and now, like I said, turn on the TV or whatever, the radio, and all you hear is number this, number that, and how about a batting average? How many some RBIs and how many times a guy walks a season or something like that? But it's nonstop. He just threw that ball 95 miles an hour on the and then he just hit it with his launch angle was 27 degrees with an exit velocity of 102. It's like, so what? It's funny because my son once in a while he'll talk. He's a big Ohtani fan. And he'll say, Dad, Ohtani hit another one tonight at 447 foot. And I'll say, do they give him 2 points or just 1 for it?
It's like home run derby. Hey, 2 points there, buddy. Yeah. Or I was watching the Met game. Gary Cohen, Pete Alonso hits a home run. He goes, oh, a big boy home run. I'm like, okay, what's the difference between a little boy home run and a big boy home run? It's the same thing. It's gone.
Right.
Maybe if you sit up in upper deck, that might be a big boy home run, but okay. That's pretty interesting,
Well, there's some strong guys out there now, and I think the balls are a little juiced for whatever reason they're trying to get Kansas State. There's no doubt. I think the balls are a lot more juiced anyway.
Yeah.
But it's obviously more fans in the stands this year. I don't know if it's because of the new rules or whatever, but it's these home runs are something else these days. Where they hit them.
Yeah. Well, let me bring in my other partner here, Matt. Yeah, Matt, you got a question for Kip?
Yeah, Kip. So what with those teams, Reds, Dodgers, Red Sox that you went ahead and played for along with the Astros? So, I mean, what's it like being a major league player, and what did you learn from it?
I learned a lot from being a baseball player, period. I mean, that's what I've always said. Baseball is life, and then when you get out of baseball, it's how you carry yourself and what you do with everything. And so those teams were something special for me because not many people get to the big leagues. I think, I think just the other day I heard now they got to 23,000 all time now. Players in the big leagues, and I think the kid was 23,004 something. Wow. And this is like 150 years now. So to be able to be one of those people and players to play at that level it's almost mind-blowing to hear that number. I do remember a few years back it was at 15,000. I'm like, at that time, I'm like, wow, that's crazy that players have been in the big leagues. But you learn so much because there's so much failure in the game, and it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get beat. It makes no difference how good you are, how good you think you are, or whatever you are going to get beat in baseball. And so, it's a humbling experience when you're going really good. Next thing you know, boom, you're not going so good. And when you're not going so good, just out of nowhere, it's like, how did I just do that? I mean, I've been going so bad, and I've been doing the same things, but just like that. But that's what athletes do, and that's what competitors do. And so, playing the big leagues is a special thing. But so I don't I relish what I did.
Yeah. Hey, baseball is a game of inches. Kip. Like somebody at work today was asking me, like, why is one team doing well and the other one? I was like, well, when you have everything going right for you, like every people at the plate getting singles through the holes and getting little bloop singles here and all the cheap hits, that means your team's doing well. And then next week, same hit might be a fly out, might be a pop out, might be a strikeout. It's just a game of inches, and that's what baseball is.
Oh, it's big time inches, and I'll add to the bases now are 3 inches bigger, whatever they are. So
they look like donuts now. It's like I'm like, okay, why do we need extra feet for somebody to slide in the second or something?
Yeah, but you're right about that as far as the hits and the pitches. You practice, and I remember a game. I don't remember who was hitting, but I'd been practicing my slider for a long time. I was trying to make it a little crisper and a little sharper on the outside corner, and it was big part of the game, and I throw that slider right on the outside corner. I couldn't have hit that corner any better than I did, and the umpire just said ball, and I'm just like, I screamed at him inside of me, just saying, dude, I've been working on this for 2 anything I wanted to, but here it is. I mean, what did it matter? Because somebody still has to call it a strike, and it just there's just so many parts to the game that you've got to get through and overcome, and umpiring is one of them. And that was one of the greatest things for me, is going to Japan, where now all the umpires over there called the same zone every time. It didn't matter who it was. Over here, they always said, as long as he's calling the same and he's consistent the whole game, it's okay. But how do you know what his consistency is in the first and second inning if you have a quick inning? A guy hits a bomb off you, and it's a 1-0 game in the end. And so where'd that consistency come from? I've always had a little problem with that. I mean, it's not big, but they're just some of the nuances in baseball that you gotta learn about.
Yeah, just asked the Cubs manager yesterday when he got he injected his pitcher, and they're like, you're already ruining the game already. It's not even the first inning. There's other words afterwards. It's just, this is a family program. I don't want to let everybody, but he was calling him, your mom is this and your mom is that, and and have a great day. But it's like but I agree with you. Umpires need like you're in Japan. Like you said, there's the same ball and strikes, and now they're going to talk about bringing out some robot to do it. And I'm like, why do we need a robot to tell you strike one? I was like, because what if you have a problem with the robot? You're going to go upstairs and take your bat and whack it, and beat the heck out of it, or do you get a fine for touching it in the wrong spot, or what's the deal?
Right? Yeah. I'm kind of split on that robot thing as far as the behind the plate, because we've always known that the umpires miss 25% of all the pitches on the corners. We've always known that.
Yeah.
Is it a big deal? I don't think it's a big deal, because it kind of washes in the end, and as long as you're throwing consistently in that zone where you should be, you're going to get the. I'm pretty impressed with the umpires today, is how good they are on that screen on TV with that box on there. I really am. I mean, there's games where you miss it and whatever, but now you see the box, so you do see that it was a ball or a strike, and that's the problem with having that box up there. I really don't like it up there personally, because then you kind of a little with the game, and this guy's not good. But that box wasn't up there. You say, was it or wasn't it? With the angle and everything. So, but I do believe today's players are more robots than anybody else, because just there's so much now in the game that's controlled by the front office instead of being an athlete. And I think that's where the game's taking a beating right now more than anything, is with that.
Hey, we talked to Wally Backman earlier in the year, and I said, what about that robot thing? He goes, don't get me started.
I remember that, Chris.
Yeah, he was like, don't get me started, because he's old school, like you are old school. Like, why do we have this thing here? How, is it serving me tea? That'd be great, or coffee or, whatever. Yeah. So it's ridiculous.
Wally's got some YouTube videos out there, doesn't he?
Yeah, yes, he does. Yes.
Exactly. Well, Kip, thank you so much for coming on tonight, and keep up the good work, and we'll try to get you back on the program later in the summer, and we'll see how everything goes.
Okay, great, guys. I appreciate it. And anytime you want me, I'll be around.
All right, Kip. Thank you so much. See you.
Thank you.
All right, Kip Gross, former Red Sox, Dodger, Astro, Rocky, you name it, he was there.
Yes, he was, Chris. Yeah.
Yes. Right now, we got a developing situation here. Let me bring up my the music here before we bring in our next guy.
Oh yeah, Chris. It's called our next guest had a home run call that a certain.
Hey, no, I got to tell you about the home run derby. Rushman.
That's right, Adley Rushman.
And lost by a score of 28-27 in the first round. So anyway, so Adam, bring in our next guest.
I will. It's called Our Next Guest had a home run call that a certain country music singer from Asheville, North Carolina really, really liked. And if you haven't seen the video, I would go check it out because it was a highly talented prospect of the Orioles that hit the homer. So to talk about that and everything else associated with the Orioles, let's bring in the voice of the Aberdeen IronBirds, and I have been practicing all day for this, so hopefully I get it right. Michael Marcantonini.
Hopefully, did he get it?
Did I get it right, Michael?
You got it right. Yeah,
Thank you.
I appreciate practicing, but you got it
Thank
right.
you. So, let's talk about the home run call that Luke Combs really appreciated.
Oh man, well I appreciate you guys mentioning that. That's a good way to start off. Yeah, that was a really cool moment. I'm a huge Luke Combs fan, and I guess long story short, I had when that song first came out, I loved it from the start. I mean, that's probably my favorite Luke Combs song to this point, and it's tough to pick a favorite song because he's awesome. But
yes, he is.
The goal was, after a while, I'm thinking like, you know what, I could probably incorporate this into a home run call at some point, like a lyric from this song, because in the song he says like a left field home run ball as one of the analogies for going, gone, and I'm like, I could mix this in. I really want to try to mix this in and, just have some fun with it. I mean, that's my goal every time I go out and call a game. I want to change it up. I don't want it to be the same thing every night. I want to have fun. And, I'm like, all right, if I do this, I really got to pick my spot with it. Like this can't just be like a first inning home run in a big moment. And, I had the big moment there. I didn't have it queued up to use for that moment, but when that ball went up to deep right center at the time, that the thought popped into my head to use it, and I did it, and it just came out great. And I never would have thought that Luke would have seen it, but that whole night and the next day was pretty crazy.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's really cool. You got Luke Combs, and then you probably got up that morning going like, huh? Like how did Luke find my video? Yeah, you're like, what? Yeah, was it one of those?
Yeah, so it's funny. So like that night, I was buzzing after that game. I mean, I'm always amped up after a game anyway because you just get that adrenaline rush when you're on air. You just can't replicate like that feeling, especially when we win and especially when it's a walk-off win. I'm amped up after the game. It takes me a couple hours to wind down and get to bed, but the tweet, MLB Pipeline and MILB both tweeted it out, posted it on Instagram. So it was getting a lot of buzz, and I was seeing people comment like, oh, he used a Luke Combs sign. That's awesome. Or like really love the Luke Combs reference. So people were getting it, which was really cool. And I was getting a lot of love for it. But then it wasn't until the next day that Luke saw it. And I remember it was middle of the afternoon and I had just gotten out of the shower. Like I was, about an hour and a half away from going to the ballpark for our next game. I checked my phone after I get out of the shower and I see a text from one of my friends who works for the IronBirds, and I see it's a link to a tweet, and I see Luke Combs in the link, and I'm like, no way he saw this. I'm thinking, no way. So I open the tweet, and I see it just says best home run call I've ever heard, and it was crazy. So that's how it happened, the next day. And yeah, I mean, definitely to this point, that's definitely the coolest moment of my career and my favorite call of my career to this point. And yeah, that was pretty special.
Yeah, we all have our special calls. I was doing arena football back in 2014, and it was the Baltimore Mariners, and they scored a touchdown in the last minute to win the championship. And I think I jumped in midair, and I think I said stuff that like the Raider guy used to say, like, get your big butt out of here, get everything rolling out the door. We just want and the people who after the game, the game was over, on the field getting the trophy and all that stuff, and I had people going, "That was a great call," and we loved listening to you. I'm thinking to myself, okay, I just grabbed a couple guys from Oakland, used the Oakland reference, get your big butt out of here, and I'm like, okay. But I remember I leaped into midair, we all of us like bowling, like Mike Albee, and I leaped in the air, and I was like, I realized after a while, like, does anybody have pictures of this? Because I wanted to see how far I jumped off the ground, because I was in the air. But that's pretty cool having Luke Coleman. So I had a chance to talk to him when he was at, when everybody was on Zoom a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And he was down at NASCAR down at Daytona. And I never interviewed a rock star before, like a country singer. And I'm like, oh, it's your turn to ask a question. I'm like, okay. I'm like, yeah, normally we do sports. So it's like, I had to use a sports question for him, but it was a great answer. I think he loves the sports. That's cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It was incredibly cool. I mean, it's I'm still buzzing about it. I mean, it's just the fact that anytime Jackson Holliday does something big, I mean, it's going to blow up across social media. So it just happened that it was the perfect storm of, I made that call on a ball that Jackson hit for his first career walk-off in pro baseball. And I used a Luke Combs lyric, and somehow it got back to him. And it just felt great. And, Fire Me Up, which you'll hear that in the call after the Luke Combs lyric. That's what I've developed as my signature home run call. So it really was the perfect storm of everything fell into place, and, it worked out.
Well, now Jackson moved up to Double-A as of today. So I guess now who's down in Aberdeen for people to, to put a circle around?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been a really talented roster all season in Aberdeen. I mean, even before Jackson got up to Aberdeen at the end of April, we already had 5 of the Orioles' top 30 prospects ranked by MLB Pipeline up with us. The most notable, to start this season, Judd Fabian, Dylan Beavers, and Max Wagner. That's like a trio that kind of they kind of get grouped together because they were the 3 that were drafted after Holiday last year, all within the span of about 30 picks. And they all moved up to high A towards the end of last year around the same time. Fabian came up first, and then a couple weeks later, Max and Dylan came up. And Judd was the first to go up to Double-A this year, and with us in Aberdeen. And both of those guys, they're going to have exciting futures because they both have really strong skill sets that play at the next level. For Max Wagner, he plays great defense at third base, and he's got home run pop in that bat. And then for Dylan Beavers, he's a guy who can, I can see him being a high average guy, but I can also see him being a guy who, is more of a power guy. He's going to grow into some power. He's got a really projectable frame. I think he's going to put on some more muscle as he moves up in his career and gets older. But he's got some pop in that bat. He's really lanky, big stride. So he's got some speed. So they both have some projectable skill sets. Silas Ardouin, one of our catchers, is another guy I like a lot. He's fantastic defensively. I mean, he is rock solid behind the plate in terms of like the stuff that you can't really measure, like, just relationship with pitchers, calling a game, things like that. He does an excellent job. And then the things you can measure, he's got an excellent arm. So, I mean, quick pop time, he's consistently cutting down guys on the bases. And not only is he throwing guys out, the stolen base attempts against him are down compared to other catchers in the league because guys know that, unless you really think you're going to make it, don't run on him. He's got a great eye at the plate too. The bat's coming around, but defensively, I think he's a guy who could play in the big leagues because of what he does behind the plate. Williams, another one of our catchers who's played a little first base. I mean, that dude absolutely rakes. I mean, the bat's going to carry him. I really like what I've seen from a lot of under the radar guys. You look at a guy like Frederick Bencosme, an infielder. He's in MLB Pipeline's top 30, somewhere in the 15 to 25 range. Not a ton of pop in his bat, but he puts the ball in play, does not strike out much at all. Pretty solid defensively. Just all over the roster, there's talent, and I think there's a lot of underrated pitching with this IronBirds team. We had some guys early in the season that pitched really well, went up to Double-A, and right now, pitching-wise, I mean, just a lot of guys that are rock solid who you know are going to go out there and give you a solid start. I think one name to keep an eye on for sure is Kyle Verbitsky, a right-hander that they got. The Orioles acquired along with Cole Irvin in the offseason in a trade with the A's. He led all of A's minor leaguers in strikeouts last season. And this season, he's really coming on strong. He just was named Orioles Minor League Pitcher of the Month for June. So he's definitely a name to keep an eye on as well.
That's cool. Well, Michael, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We'll get you on a little bit more during the season, and keep up the good work, and keep that get another home run call. Maybe get another country singer stopping by. That'd be cool.
I gotta get some notes down, brainstorm my next one. But thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, and happy to come on anytime again.
And Aberdeen is home this Friday night against Wilmington, the Blue Rocks. And it's actually Steam Crabs, the Aberdeen Steam Crabs' final season with that goofy uniform. So if anybody wants to go down to come up to Aberdeen, Maryland for that game, it's cheap tickets and enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, starting a 9-game homestand over the next 10 days, starting Friday through the following Sunday. So should be a fun stretch in Aberdeen.
All right, Michael. Thank you so much for coming on, and have a great rest of your night.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Nice to see you. Bye. All right, that's Michael Marcantonini, who I think I almost got it.
Yeah, and Chris, I will say that Luke Combs' parents still have a home in Asheville, North Carolina, and a lot of people don't realize that Luke Combs is from Asheville. He went to T.C. Robertson High School, so we're awful proud of him over here in the Smoky Mountains. Yeah, it's called. When I heard that, I was like, Luke Combs. I was like, ooh, I knew that.
That's true. But let's bring this next guest. This is one of the great offensive minds. He spent his time at Texas Tech and TCU, and now he's the head coach at Louisiana Tech, the Bulldogs, and they're getting their set ready for the Conference USA season. So they're going to be playing FIU on the first weekend of everybody, week 0 and all that stuff. So let's bring in Sonny Cumbie, who's the head coach of the Bulldogs. Hi, Coach Sonny. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, Chris.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys having us on tonight.
No problem. Thank you for coming on. We're trying to get some of the Power 5 coaches on our program, so we're trying to get everybody on if we can. I was doing some research. You spent some time at Texas Tech as an offensive coordinator. Just talk about your offensive mind. Where'd you get all that? What kind of offense do you guys run down there? Because I grew up watching a lot of cool coaches like Steve Spurrier with the Fun and Gun, and Bobby Bowden with the what he did in Florida State. And all that. Where did you get all your Fun and Gun stuff?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to play at Texas Tech for Mike Leach, who, obviously we all know the impact that he had on the game offensively, and then I think defensively also the impact that his offense has created in the game of football. And so was able to play for him. I coached under him. I coached alongside Cliff Kingsbury, Neil Brown, worked with him at Texas Tech as well, and then also with Matt Wells. And then, with Doug Meacham, was the guy I worked with at TCU, a very creative mind. And then also being with Gary Patterson for 7 years. And so I think if you were to think of it, really the roots and the foundation of it is some air raid principles. And that's kind of the foundation of it. But like most of the guys from that branch, we've all taken it and kind of done our own little wrinkles and added our own little spin to it. But I would think it would be an air raid, family. And then we've just kind of grown from there.
That's awesome. So last year was your first season, not a great first season, 2 wins out of 9 losses. But what did you learn from that season to help you grow for this year? Because everybody's first year is not like 6-5. You go to a bowl game and you win a bowl game and all that stuff. It's growing pains, taking over a program, building your staff, getting everybody hooked up to your system. What did you guys learn from your first year?
Yeah, I think anytime you go 3-9 in your first season, it's not ideal, but there was a lot of heavy lifting, as I like to say, that we had to do this year.
Adam, you got a question?
Yeah, now Sonny, it's called. I remember when you were a quarterback at Texas Tech, and You beat someone named Aaron Rodgers in the Holiday Bowl in San Diego. So what was it like to knock off Aaron Rodgers?
Of everything that you guys hearing me okay?
Yeah, we hear you. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect.
So what was it like to knock off Aaron Rodgers when he was at Cal in the Holiday Bowl in San Diego, when you were the star quarterback at Texas Tech, throwing to who knows how many wide receivers on a given night?
Right. Yeah. No, that was a lot of fun. That was a good game for us at Texas Tech to really accumulate the end of our senior season. A great group of guys that worked really hard in 2014, and for us to get that win for Texas Tech, I think really it kind of propelled them into the next season where they ended up going to the Cotton Bowl, and so it was a great win for our program. Obviously Cal was a loaded football team and had a lot of talented players, and just fortunate, that we were able to come out with a win, and it was a great moment. I think probably a signature moment for our program.
Well, Sonny, I was looking at some nuggets. Your great PR department gave me some nuggets about your team. You have a transfer, one of those transfer portal guys from Boise State coming to you guys this year. What does Hank bring to a team that, basically he spent 4 seasons in Boise State? Now he's off to you guys for maybe one season, or is it just 1 or 2?
He's got 2 years left, but I think ideally, he would like to play really well, and we'd like for him to play really well, and then test his opportunities to go, into the NFL. And I think Hank's very accurate. He's very smart. He gets the ball out of his hand quickly. He knows where to go with the football, and he has a lot of experience. He started 29 football games, and so I think anytime you've got a quarterback that started 29 games, you got to take into account, how many times he's practiced leading a football team, Monday through Friday, and for preparation for a football game and winning football games. And so I'm excited about how he's came in and really immersed himself with our team. I think how he's learned our offense, and he picks up things very quickly. So he's a sharp player. And I think he's a tough kid, and he's really had a good summer in our offseason with Coach Dave Scholes, our strength conditioning coach. And so, I think that I'm excited about Hank and excited about Jack Turner also, who we have on our roster. And we have a couple other younger quarterbacks coming in I think are really going to benefit from learning from those guys.
Yeah. Matt, you got a question for Coach?
Yes, Coach. So what will it take to become bowl eligible this season?
Well, I think our schedule, non-conference schedule, we end up playing Northwestern State, we play North Texas, we play SMU, and we play Nebraska. And so it's definitely not an easy task, in non-conference. We've got a very difficult non-conference schedule. I think Conference USA is a really good conference. Some premier, head coaches in this league, excluding myself, really. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you got Jerry Kill, you got Rich Rodriguez, you got Jamie Chadwell. You got Casey Keeler, who won a national championship at Sam Houston State. You got Mike McIntyre, Rick Stockstill, who's been a legend and been in Middle Tennessee for a long time, has done a phenomenal job there. Tyson Helton with what he's done at Western Kentucky. And then you have Dana Dimmel, who's done a phenomenal job at UTEP. And so a lot of great head coaches in this league. It's going to take a lot for us to be able to do that and to win 6 games and get into the bowl game. And so it'll be a lot of hard work. We start, FIU is our first game. We played those guys August 26th here in Ruston at 8 o'clock, and it'll be on a CBS Sports. So, I think it'll be a great opportunity for everybody to see what Louisiana Tech has to offer as an institution, what the city of Ruston's about, and then also, what our football team's about.
And people don't realize Louisiana Tech had Terry Bradshaw as their quarterback back in the 70s. So people don't realize Terry was there, as the quarterback, and the guy who was Duck Dynasty he's also his roommate.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool that this football team has rich tradition, And I was also doing some research. Matt Dugan, who played in the CFL back in the early late 90s. When we had the CFL here in Baltimore. I remember he was with Winnipeg. I'm like, wow, I didn't know he was a Louisiana Tech guy. So that's pretty cool. What this program is. It's a very good rich tradition.
Well, in the Super Bowl this year, the Eagles and the Chiefs, Louisiana Tech had 3 players playing in that game. Milton Williams and Boston Scott playing for the Philadelphia Eagles, and then L'Jarius Sneed playing defensive back for Kansas City. And so there's a lot of great football players in the state of Louisiana. There have been a lot of great players who have came through this program before me. We have some on our roster now, and there'll be some that'll come after us. And so, with the location of this school, you're going to be around a lot of really good football players, and it's our job to find them. It's our job to develop them and then put them in the right positions so they can be successful.
Yeah, Chris Sonny, I was also looking at your schedule real quick. You got Nebraska. It's not the Nebraska for old, not Tom Osborne is not there. It's not Tommy Frazier, not anybody, but it's still Nebraska. It's still a brand name. So when you get to that game right now, you're worried about the first game of the year. But what's it like going to a place like Lincoln where there's all rich history that your kids are gonna go, wow, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a great place to play a football game. I was fortunate enough at Texas Tech to go there several times in the Big 12 and compete against Nebraska there. And it's an unbelievable stadium, great tradition, and extremely loud. I know Matt Rule's going to do a phenomenal job there, as he's done everywhere he's been collegiately. And so just excited about that challenge. But, we've got a long ways to go, like you said, a long ways to go before we get to that moment. And we're still trying to build our football team here in the summer and trying to find ways to get first downs for that first game against FIU.
Yeah, I want to give you guys praises. Congratulations on those letters to that Clemson guy last year. With his son, it was his sister passing away with cancer. You guys all wrote letters, and what was it like playing Clemson down there in Death Valley? And Dabo was really seemed like Dabo really liked who you are.
Well, it was an opportunity just to give back, to someone who was hurting, to someone who was we just if it could be a sliver of encouragement, that's really what we were trying to do for Brian and his family. Dabo was very cordial in pregame, really enjoyed our visit, and it was a phenomenal stadium to play in. Our players really enjoyed it. It was a great atmosphere, and I wish we would have played a little better in the red zone on offense, and I think we would have applied a little bit more pressure on them than what we did.
That's true. Well, Coach, thank you so much for coming on tonight. I know you're a busy guy. You're in the off season, getting ready for media days and all that stuff. And when does camp start for you guys?
We start July 26th. Since we play week 0, we start July 26th, and we'll be rocking and rolling. So it's getting right around the corner.
That's great. Well, congratulations. Good luck in the season. We hope to get you on later in the year when you play Nebraska. And we do a lot of Big Ten here as well. So we'll try to get back on. Okay.
That sounds great. Well, I appreciate it. You guys keep following us, okay?
All right, Coach. Have a great evening.
Thanks
Thank you so much.
Okay.
See you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. All right. That's Coach Sonny Cumbie, who is the head coach of Virginia Tech. The Bulldogs. Louisiana Tech. Yeah, not the other Louisiana school it's playing Florida State. Yeah.
Oh, yes, they are. And that'll be a heck of a game.
Yeah, that'll be a heck of a game. But it's great to try to get some Power 5 school coaches on. And speaking of that, we'll be next week. We'll start our coverage of the CAA Media Day with our good friend coming on our program next Monday night. Our good friend Mike Burnett will be joining us. He's a good friend of ours, an old tight end for Virginia Tech. I want to go to his house for barbecue because he's been talking about a lot of good food in that house every time he's been on the program.
Yes, Chris.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, maybe when we see him at ACC Media Day down there in Charlotte, maybe he'll bring.
Maybe he'll bring some barbecue.
Yeah.
Also, before we wrap it up here, today is July 10th. So back in 1999. We had a big Women's World Cup final at the Rose Bowl, and U.S. beat China 5-4 on penalty kicks, and the ladies won their second World Cup. And the reason why this was so popular because this, when they scored, here's the video. The lady who scored for the United States took off her top and started doing that, and I guess in 1999, it was kind of like obscene to have that. It's like kind of, I guess it was taken back to people like, wow, they just take off their top, wow. So, I guess that's, but it's, they're speaking of the World Cup. The Women's World Cup will be on Fox, and our good friend Rob Stone will be doing his great coverage of the World Cup. They're down in New Zealand and Australia this year. So end of July, early August, so on Fox. So,
and Chris, to let everybody know, it's called Speaking of this day in sports history. On this day last year, myself and our good friend Kristen Anderson, we were in Portland, Maine to see the PBA League and to see the Portland Lumberjacks win their third consecutive PBA League crown. And we saw the legend, Norm Duke threw his last ever bowling ball, and it was a strike. So it was pretty cool to witness that. And also, it is 7-10 day, and also there have been 4 players in PBA Tour history to make the 7-10, and they are Mark Roth, John Mazza, Jess Stayrock, and Anthony Nauer at the U.S. Open a couple years ago. So there's a little bit of bowling news for you guys.
That's cool. That's awesome.
So yeah.
Well, guys, I have some breaking news from college football. Okay, that just happened within probably the past hour. Pat Fitzgerald from Northwestern is fired as the head coach. So Northwestern is now looking for a head coach.
Yeah, due to a situation that it was reported earlier. Yeah, you probably heard it 2 hours ago. I heard it on ESPN. Sources from ESPN, they fired him because of a hazing situation back in 2014 with a player, and I guess the environment of that organization they went to some camp that was like, I guess these schools need to stop going to these little camps during fall camp because you get people in trouble. So I guess somebody did something un-American or something really not appropriate to talk about, and I guess they had to do something, and they fired him. First, they suspended him for 2 weeks without pay, and I was thinking, well, I guess he won't be not at any of these media days, and then tonight they just fired him. I guess they realized that it's a lot more than they thought it was, So that's really interesting. Real quick before we go, ESPN over the last week had some firings or layoffs. We know somebody in our audience. We know somebody who got fired, right, Matt? That's the only thing I'm talking about.
I saw it, Chris. It's called.
It was David Pollock and Gene Wojciechowski. And
so what's your take on that, real quick, before we end the show here? Game day is going to be weird.
I mean, I think personally, it's what's going. Well, first of all, David Pollock was definitely an instrumental part of game day, and likewise with Gene Wojciechowski. I mean, Gene Wojciechowski was the person that had those really those heart gripping, those emotional, very touching stories.
Yes.
That what I know I thoroughly enjoy, and that I know some people that actually cried over their stories, and it was not bad to admit that. I mean, those stories that Gene Wojciechowski spoke with the families and stuff really gripped to people's heart. And I'm interested to see if they're still going to have that part of the college game day, because that was really a really great part of college game day. I mean, that really Gene Wojciechowski did a tremendous job and everything. And in fact, I read an article saying that Gene Wojciechowski really helped Reese Davis a whole lot with doing like the game day broadcasts and everything. So, I mean, he's really going to be missed along with David Pollock and everything. But those stories really just are very emotional, and when I know that I'm really going to miss that segment. If game day doesn't have that segment on this year, I'm really going to miss that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How about you, Adam?
Well, we're going to wrap up the show here. Hold on here. I'm having some issues here with the, I guess with the weather outside. I guess I'm having hiccups here.
Oh, there's bad weather up there?
No, it's just right now I'm trying to get a program and up a video here, and it's just frozen on me.
Uh-oh.
So I guess I can't log off here. What the heck is going on here?
Experiencing
Hold on,
technical
guys.
difficulties.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Technical difficulties here in the program here. So hold on. I'm trying to get a video real quick here, but it's not letting me do it.
It's called You're Frozen, Chris.
Yep, I'm frozen. I can't do anything.
Ah.
Well, yeah, Chris, you're definitely a person just like I was a while ago.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm frozen. I can't even do anything.
Hey, Chris, there's a movie out there called Frozen.
Yeah. Yes,
I
there
know.
was.
I know. I'm trying to figure out why am I what the heck is going on here?
I don't know.
I don't know. Hold on. I'm trying to get off the air here, and the clock is still moving. Yeah. Okay, we'll just forget it. Yeah, we'll pull it up another time. Come on. Yeah, we're just going to wrap it up here. We'll see you folks next Monday night with Mike Burnup. Hopefully we'll get this thing.
Yeah. It's called, we'll see you guys. Yeah, it's called. We'll see you guys next Monday night when we begin our preview of the ACC with Mike Burnoff from Virginia Tech and our good friend Dan Totoro, who always does a good job. So for Chris Heidel from Atriganelli, I'm Adam Lemery saying thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next Monday night.
Thanks, guys. Good night. So Adam, I see that Chris is logged out. So are you able to stop the show?
No, it's called, hopefully Chris can log back in so we can end the show.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah, because Chris has all the graphics and everything. So
Anyway, I guess since the show's still going on, so what do you think about David Pollock and Gene Wojciechowski getting laid off?
I'll miss him. I will miss him, and there's a lot of other people that got laid off at ESPN. Ashley Burr, who did Sports Center out in LA. She got laid off, and she recently just got married to Frank Kaminsky, who is an NBA player. So very happy for her. And I think there was about 20 people overall that got laid off from ESPN. And it is what it is. When I saw it, I couldn't believe it. It was sad to see, but if it was the right move, it was the right move. Nothing we can do about it.
No, not at all. And I know Chris Felica, aka known as the Bear, the guy that does the spread picks and everything, that's become very well known over the past 5 years or so with Game Day. I know that he left, I believe, in December. I believe
he's now with
he's
Fox.
now with Fox Game Day.
Yeah. So I guess I guess we'll just log out and we'll see you guys next Monday night. So take care, everybody.
Yep. See y'all next Monday. Take care. Good night.
Good night.
standing ovation. It will grow as Ripken bats here in the third. The man of 1,000 stances leads off, rips one, goodbye.